another thing that makes me think that they could be real. Just picture me when the grizzly bear is not there, because I'm not running or crying. That's where we got to camp, and it was absolutely beautiful. They call the mountains there the backbone of the world, and they had all of these stories that they were telling us and music they were playing that told us about how the enemy to be used to be part of the conclaves with the Blackfoot, and they would trade with them, and they called them their brothers, and they would, you know, come up close where you could see them. Not trade like we would think about it, like goods and services and stuff, but like here, like they were closer to them. But then once modernization started happening on the reservations, they say that the enemy to be retreated back into the forests more, and they call them more of a guardian. So there's something kind of beautiful and spiritual about that. But they also are in their dumpsters, you know. I'm scheduled to go out to the Navajo Nation, but that trip got messed up because of COVID too. But they have like a special law enforcement unit for their hairy man. Like if it's messing with your goats or whatever you have out there, you can call them. Like it's very physical. It's very real to them. So I find it to be really fascinating. So just a few other pictures of my Project Zoo book group out there. The ladies that invited us out, if you like Bigfoot, they have a wonderful podcast called Pekuni Indian Tales, I believe. They are Blackfoot ladies, and they have been going around and getting on camera different tribal members telling their stories about the enemy to be. And it's really cool. So you can look them up if you'd like. So I'm just going to tell you briefly about Project Zoo. I can talk about it all night, but I'm not going to. But basically, it is a group of researchers and scientists all across North America and going into some other countries now. I was very, very fortunate that I met a young lady through a Facebook group who was interested in Bigfoot, and we were talking through Messenger that she and her coworkers wanted to go like on an expedition or something and go find Bigfoot. Now this is called Amy's Bucket List Expeditions, but I don't charge for expeditions, I just go on them. And since I did have cancer, I have an actual bucket list, and a lot of it has to do with Bigfoot. But my first two things are I want to see the Savannah Bananas baseball team, and I actually got tickets finally, so that is coming true in August, I think it is. And my second thing is to be in a demolition derby. So those two things have nothing with Bigfoot. Then there's like a bunch of Bigfoot things and other things. So anyway, so I was talking to her about Bigfoot, and she wanted to go on an expedition, and then I was like, well, there's different groups, and I used to be in a group that you would pay to go on expeditions. I didn't get any money, but other people did, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But I said, you don't have to do that. You could just look for Bigfoot by yourself. You know, we just call it kind of camping or hiking with purpose. Like if you were hoping to find salamanders, you would go, you'd learn about where salamanders are supposed to be, and you would go look for them, right? So if you're looking for Bigfoot, you would think, okay, where would a large creature, what would it eat? Where would it walk? Where would it cover be? How would it drink? And you'd kind of go in that area, maybe find out where other people said they've seen them, and then you'd go look. So I said, it's not like rocket science, although I don't ever find any Bigfoot, so maybe don't listen to me. But you could just go. I'm like, I'll take you. Well, it ended up that she and her coworkers, which I thought was cool, because my coworkers kind of make fun of me. I mean, they're nice about it, but whatever. You know, they're not going to want to go look for Bigfoot with me. But she told me about a week or so after I was messaging with her, I had no idea who she was, that she and her coworkers were the primate department of a zoo. And I was like, oh, really? Like, are you just like, oh, Bigfoot, that's fun, you know, which is fine. Bigfoot is fun. Are you serious? And she's like, no, we're serious. She had been to the Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Cherry Log, Georgia with her dad, just kind of on a lark, and became fascinated by it, by the stories and different prints and stuff. She's like, what the heck? Kind of like my what the heck moment, but it was like even more surreal to her, who works with great apes, right? And she's like, okay, this is interesting. So she said she was at, in the lunchroom with the other primate zoologist, and she's like, so what do you think about Bigfoot? And the other gorilla guy, he's like, oh my gosh, I love Bigfoot. I've always been interested in Bigfoot. I think they could be real. And there were 3 others at the time, and they were kind of eating their sandwiches, being like, they were more on the, I don't know what you guys are talking about side, but at least we're open to it. So once I found that out, I was like, wow, this is like a really cool opportunity, because I don't know about you, but like, especially back then, I was like, I didn't see a lot of, besides Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, a few scientists were interested in Bigfoot, but not mostly. And so I was much more used to being laughed at, which obviously I don't care, than taken seriously. So I felt like this kind of weight of, I gotta do something for them. I gotta show them something good. So the next thing I'm gonna talk about is the Olympic project, which is something good and something cool in Bigfooting. And so I called my friend Shane Corson, and I was like, I have this group of primate zoologists, and they're interested. Could you talk to them? Because I didn't really have anything super cool. I just saw something, right? And I was like, could you talk to them? And we started out just with phone calls, and flash forward 6 years, because that was in 2018. Now every other Thursday night, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because we have people from the West Coast and East Coast, we get together on a Zoom call now, and we have guests, we have witnesses, we have like a special subject that we're going to talk about, and we're kind of like a think tank, is what I would say we are. And we are a place where scientists who, for whatever reason, when they first told me, they couldn't really tell their boss that they were interested in Bigfoot, because not necessarily would they get fired, but like especially the one gorilla guy, like he goes around the world talking and teaching about gorillas. So he's like, yeah, if I said I'm taking this seriously, they might frown upon that. And then you have others who are worried about their funding. They can't come out of the Bigfoot closet, I like to say, necessarily. Some have and some can, but some have not been able to. So I wanted to make this place where all these academics could talk to each other. And we don't have any false notions that we're going to be the ones to find Bigfoot. But wouldn't it be cool if we came up with some kind of an idea and put that out there, and somebody else used that idea and maybe found some kind of evidence? And the reason we do it, and the reason I do this, is one, I would like to know for super duper sure, that's true, super duper, that's very academic. And I also, all of us in Project Zuba would like there to be some type of knowledge base that maybe we could pass on to the powers that be someday, if and when these creatures are found and the government or whoever says, yeah, they're real, and they could be protected. So that is our hope. We say often, we quote Dr. John Bindernagel, who was a wildlife scientist, wildlife biologist from Canada, who was put his reputation on the line. He's passed away since, but for his studies with Bigfoot, he wanted to make the topic less taboo for other scientists, and so we've kind of run with that, both Project Zoobook and then the next thing I'm going to tell you about, which is the Olympic project. We want people to be able to discuss it. And the scientists that we have, some of them are hopeful skeptics, but they're all open-minded, and some of them have seen one. And that's really cool, because one of them, and he says I can say this because he was interviewed, a group of us were interviewed for Doug Hychek's next big documentary, Legend Meets Science 2, that's going to be coming out, and a few of our scientists will be in there, and one of them, he is a herpetologist, but he is also a wildlife filmmaker for National Geographic. He used to be the film guy, the camera guy for Les Stroud for Survivor Man, and he would make fun of Les because Les said, he thought Bigfoot was real and he had some experiences. He's like, whatever. They were friends, so it was like, friendly, making fun of him, but he's like, whatever, that's stupid, right? Well, until he saw one, and now he doesn't think it's stupid anymore. So when somebody like him, and he said, I feel like it's finally time, I saw what I saw, I'm gonna be brave, he could lose clients, he could lose some credibility, but he's like, I can't deny what I saw anymore. So and I have like no pressure, like you don't have to do anything for my sake. But he's gonna be talking about that, and I think it's pretty cool. So if you or someone you love are a scientist and you're interested in Bigfoot and you would like to be involved in Project Zubik, please let me know. We also do other side projects and things like that now. We're not just talking about it, but we have like scientists and researchers hooked up doing things and going places and researching and doing, we're trying to do more, some of our scientists are working together on articles for like scholarly journals, peer-reviewed journals and things like that. So we're just trying to make it less taboo. All right. So I want to talk about the Olympic project. And this is like a very, very condensed version of what's going on here. But I'm going to show you at the end and tell you about some documentaries that you could watch if you find this interesting. That Small Town Monsters has done, and they have done a fabulous job of it. Do you know about the Olympic project?
I do.
Okay, anybody else ever hear of it?
Didn't they also uncover hairs too from
Yes.
the nests?
Yes. So what happened, really long story short, there was a surveyor from a logging company out in the Olympic National Forest who came across these nests, very large nests. And to get there, I've been there several times, to get to that first nest site, you have to, first of all, if you want to get any close to it, you have to have the keys, which the logging company couldn't figure out what these were. They brought in a bear biologist, a wood rat specialist, primatologist, all these people, and they couldn't figure out what they were. But you have to have the keys to get in the gates to go down this really bad road, and another gate, and then you finally get to the point where you can start hiking in. And there were some points back then anyway, the guys have kind of made a little path now, but you had to belly crawl through these huckleberry bushes, like up and down some different ridges, and into the valley a little bit out in the middle of nowhere. When I first heard about this, before I was asked to be a part of the Olympic project, which I so can't believe, because it's just so cool. I'm like, but I'm in Ohio, and they're like, we don't care, we want you to be part of it. I still, whatever, but I'm excited. But before I had been there, like the first thing I thought of was like, well, why couldn't it be humans? And I'm just gonna address that right away. I mean, it could be, I guess, right? Because we didn't ever see Bigfoot making these nests, so even the Olympic project doesn't say for sure what it was. But for somebody to be hoaxing, have you been to the nest site itself yet? It would be really dumb, because I don't know how else to put it, but nobody would probably ever find your hoax. And some of those nests are like older than others, so they would have had to be hoaxing for a long time. And I just don't think so. And there's no indication that there's humans, no rappers or anything like that. If I was a human making like a hermit or something living out there, I wouldn't go that far in. And then if I did, I would have some kind of overhead covering. It just doesn't seem to be something that humans would do, but we cannot say for sure, because the logging company surveyor was there, right? So it's possible for humans to go. But anyway, let me continue a little bit, see what other things I have. It's a continuing ground nest study. And here's what the nest looks like. It's so different in person than seeing this, but that's just a general idea. The first nest site that they found had over 20 nests. They were all like set up kind of strategically, so like whatever was in these nests could have sight lines to each other. The point nest it was closest to this embankment going down into a salmon stream. There was skid marks going down from there, like something had used it as a means of egress. There were 2 rocks in that point nest that had grooves that matched, like something had been using the rocks to communicate. There's all kinds of food sources around there. I know that doesn't look necessarily that impressive, but I think one of the other pictures might show you why we think it is. We had Dr. Meldrum and some primatologist, and he's an anthropologist, came in, said that something with opposable thumbs had to make these because there were support sticks in there. They're like a big cushy mattress for something. Some of them went all the way to 8 feet across for these. And nothing known had been making them. I could say so much more about this, but I just don't have the time. There's another one, you can see the tree coming through it. This was obviously a nest that's older because there's no greenery, you know. The sticks and huckleberry branches and leaves were brought in from different areas. Some of the places where they were broken off, not cut, but broken off, were higher than any of the guys in the group could have even reached. Like Shane is like 6'1" at least, and he would have had to drag a step stool with him, you know, through there, and they were living, so it's very hard. I don't think the guys could have even did that if they wanted to. Some of the leaves were stripped off, which is a very primate-like thing to do, and used to cushion the nests. And these two were particularly interesting because when our primate scientists were first talking to the Olympic Project researchers, and they heard about these bush nests, the first thing they thought about, because these nests were smaller, they weren't done very well, and they were raised up in some bushes, and they were different than all the rest of the nests. And both of the primate specialists were like, that sounds like what gorillas do when they're teaching their young how to make a nest. They lift them up off the ground into some bushes, and they're like, here, like gather these up, and we're gonna make a practice nest. And so from that came this theory that maybe with the remoteness of this and the food, and these nests were built really well, because in the wild, like gorillas and chimps and stuff, they're usually, they have a nest and they move on, they have a nest and they move on. That maybe it's some type of a nursery, which would make sense that these were of different ages, because like orangutans only have young every 6 years or so. So maybe they go there when they have young, use it and leave. A running theory, we don't know. But another thing that's cool is huckleberries in particular are have medicinal uses for mothers, new mothers. So we're just, this is the kind of thing we talk about. Like maybe it's that, maybe it's that. And this is my favorite picture, because on the left you have a gorilla nest, and on the right you have one of the unknown nests. And I'll never forget the day that I first went there with those two primate specialists, and they turned around and were coming up out of the nest site, and the looks on their faces, I can only describe as like awestruck, and it was so exciting, and I'm standing there, and they were dumbfounded, and the one, he's been over in Africa with the gorillas and studied them and stuff, and he's like, these look just like primate nests, and they were set up just like primate nests, and they were like, oh my gosh, and I'm sitting there like, oh my, like, you mean it could be real? You know, it's just a really cool place to be. The last time I was there, I was helping Shane like take batteries out of the cameras and all this stuff, and I'm just smiling, and he's like, you're just having a good old time, aren't you? And I'm like, this is better than Disney World. But it's really interesting, and we feel no matter what is making these, that it's worthy of looking into, right? The logging company stopped logging because of these. They thought it was important enough to stop logging, like we're gonna give you time to figure this out. Now, everyone in the Olympic Project wishes you could have just put some cameras, audio equipment in there and left it, but we still don't know like how long they're gonna let us have to be in there. Another nest site has been found, like about a half mile away or so, and Shane and Todd, two of our main researchers, came across something in the middle of making one of the nests. They could hear it moving away. They saw the sticks and all the leaves on the ground. They have handprints, footprints. It's really cool, and lots of hair that is currently being analyzed. Some which has already been analyzed. It matches other hair that's been found around North America that has not come back. It often comes back as human or contaminated because it's so close to human, and it's all matching each other, but
Yeah.
it's unknown.
Also no medulla for sure.
No medulla, right, which is the thing in the middle of the hair follicle, which is primate-like. So we're doing eDNA studies. It's really cool, but do we have, I can't talk about everything with it. I'm not trying to make it like, just partly I don't know everything that's going on, and partly I would have to get permission to talk about some of the things, but it's exciting. Like there's real science going on when it comes to Sasquatch. I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit. I'm gonna go through these things fast so we have time for questions and things like that. But that's what it would be like, but a bit bigger. They're just cute, so I have to
Looks like my dad's sleeping.
Right? Right? It does look like Leska too, my fiance. Those are other things that they looked into, but none of them were similar in any way. And these definitely, something had to have manipulated them. That's just us talking, and I like that picture because I can go, look at me, I'm for the Looking Project. No, I'm just a big dork, I am. Those are just some of the places that we've gone to research. There we go. So this is what I was talking about, On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery. That's a little bit older one. That's about the Olympic project. There's a newer one that I hadn't even seen till recently. It was like from about 5 or 6 months ago. Streaming for free on YouTube, and it's called Return to the Nest Site. Is it still on the trail of Bigfoot? Eli did it.
Yeah, it's Eli's Beyond the Trail.
Beyond the Trail,
Yeah.
Return to the Nest Site.
Yeah.
So that one is amazing. It's really well done. I think my picture is in it for like half a second, like doesn't look great. But no, it's really well done. So you can learn more about those nests if you find them interesting. This I put on here just because it is so surreal. So one day, I'm a teacher. I don't even teach science. I teach reading and English, right? Never in my whole imagination would I have thought the things that Bigfoot was going to do for me when I first got interested. And this whole bucket list thing, I always like to pause a minute and say, I know, I had cancer, I had really, really bad heart failure from when I got COVID. I'm getting better, I feel like I keep putting down, then I get better, and I'm doing these different things. We really don't know, how much time we have, right? We really don't. It's kind of a cliche, but we don't. So I always like to kind of stop and encourage people to write down a bucket list, because when you write it down, you're more likely to do things. You really are. At least I was. So I just want to say that. I encourage you to kind of get out there, if it's Bigfoot or whatever it is, to get out there and kind of start looking into something that you like and do it. But never in a million years would I thought a reporter from the Wall Street Journal was going to call me and say, hey, we want to do an article on you. I'm like, are you sure? There has to be somebody better than me to do that, because I know my limitations. I love Bigfoot. I've read every book probably that there is on Bigfoot. I feel like I have a good knowledge base, but I'm not an expert or anything. I haven't found anything. I don't even know what I saw. But he's like, well, I got your name from somebody. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to do it if somebody wants me to. But I told him about Project Zubik, and originally this was going to be like a tiny, you can see the thing over there, see the one on the top? It was going to be little like that. And the last article he had done was the best pogo stick jumper guy in the world. So it was going to be more like entertainment, which I was fine with. But after he learned about Project Zubik, he was like, wait a minute, you have scientists that really think this could be real? I'm like, yeah, we have scientists that say they've seen them, but they can't really talk about it too much. So he got really fascinated. It ended up being a much bigger story. He came on different Project Zooms with us, and we all had to discuss it, because we were like, do we want to take that jump? Because what if he makes us look stupid? But he didn't. He was really fair and fascinating. I still talk to him a lot. He wants to do something else, but I'll just put myself out there. I'm like, I'm the coordinator of the smart people, but I'll talk to you if you want me to. But that has brought about some really cool opportunities for us, and different scientists that are involved now because they saw that, because they didn't know about the nests and that this was going on. So I feel very blessed These are just some pictures of us out looking for Bigfoot. What do I do to try to add to the evidence database? I go camping. Like I said, camping with a purpose. I educate myself. The first time I ever went camping by myself, I couldn't even put my tent up hardly, and I put a tiny padlock on the zippers so nobody would murder me. And and I hardly could make the fire because I couldn't even do a lighter on a Duraflame log, you know. It was bad. But I was determined. I'm like, I'm gonna go out in the woods and look for Bigfoot, and I don't wanna die. So I now take different survival classes, and I've almost graduated from the whole program. I'm making a snare, spring snare there, and we have to make, you know, I have to go in and I have to shave the little kindling and dry it in the sun, and then make it with all different ways. We have like 50 different ways we have to learn to make fire without matches. I never was gonna do that in my entire life. I didn't even know how to make a fire. So it's like taking me down to do some really cool things. So a lot of the books I have around that table are like about medicinal and edible plants. That's my favorite thing that I've learned a lot about, and survival things, and then Bigfoot as well. So, you know, you educate yourself about what you love to do. And I'd still probably die out there, but maybe not the first day. Me and a bunch of dudes looking for Bigfoot. That's just what the FLIR looks like. I saw something in 2018 going down a power line cut through a FLIR like that. I'm still not sure what it was, but it seemed to be really big. That's out of Mount Hood. That's the camp where we had some really weird sounds caught on audio right by a possible footprint that we found. And I always make my little spot. Boys usually fish, just because I feel bad for the fish. I'll eat them, but I feel bad for them, and I do fire. I collect firewood and do the fire. That's the possible footprint we found. So it's a lot of fun. I told you I do a lot of outdoor shows. These are things I've been involved with, some different documentaries, and Sasquatch Legend Meet Science 2 is coming soon. How soon, I'm not sure. I know Doug is still interviewing different people, but it's going to be cool. And that was one of the first things that I watched when I got interested in Bigfoot, was the first Sasquatch Legend Meet Science, which was like from about 20 years ago. It's a really good documentary. Do a lot of things with kids. I'm a teacher, like I said, so if I can be there, I will be there. Youth group, scouts, 4-H, different expeditions I've been on. And what's next, this is exciting, and this is pretty much what I'll be ending you with, or ending with you. Another blessing that came along, I do those outdoor shows, that I met someone at an outdoor show who is very interested in Bigfoot, and I was surprised by this, because that's not what I think of when I think of him. Do any of you watch the show Alone on the History Channel? I love that show. So it's kind of like Survivor on steroids, because you have different contestants, but they truly are alone, and they have to tape themselves, like video themselves, video themselves, and they have 10 things that they get to choose to take in there, and whoever is left wins. Well, season 7 was the big alone season, because you had to make it 100 days in the Arctic, and then whoever was the last one standing won. So there was only one person. There was a lady who, she almost made it to the 100 days, but they made her leave because she got frostbite on her toes. But there was one person who made it to 100 days, and that is Mr. Roland Welker. They call him the 100-Day King, and he's from Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. So he just happened to be speaking at something I was speaking at, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Roland Welker. And he sought me out, and I'm like, what? He's like, I want to go look for Bigfoot. We should do an expedition together. And I'm like, okay. And so in 2026, we're going to be going to Alaska. We're going to be flying into Fairbanks, taking, I think, 2 jumper planes and a skiff down the river to go look for Bigfoot. And the reason he's interested is because when he first moved out to Alaska in his 20s, he lived with like the Inuit, and they would tell him stories about Bigfoot. And so he's like, it's time. I want to go to where they say they are, and we're gonna look for them. But his Small Town Monsters people just did this documentary where the scary Bigfoots live in Alaska. So I already have pre-nightmares about it, but I'm going anyway. If I can make it. But we're we're still looking for one person for our team. It's gonna be a little pricey, which is why I have like 4 jobs, but it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be really cool. Monster Fest. I'm gonna be there again this year teaching a footprint casting class, but it's a bunch of really cool cryptozoologists and speakers in Canton, Ohio. So it was awesome last year, and it's again this year on, this is last year's date, but up on the top, June 28th to 29th, 2024. So here in a couple weeks. And that's how you can contact me. That hat, I have my BFRO hat. I'm no longer in the BFRO, but still have a lot of friends in there. And there's my tent that looks like a club sandwich, so if you ever see it out there, it's probably me. And now you can. So does anybody have any questions or any stories they want to share? Thank you for listening to me. I didn't mean to talk this much, but I get so excited.
Can you go back a slide?
I will try.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you go to?
And I have business
Salt
cards over there too. What'd you say?
Fork? Did you go to Salt Fork, their Bigfoot?
I used to help with that Bigfoot conference that they have. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I no longer am involved with it.